Hello, guys. Welcome back to Between the Ropes TV. We had a little bit of a break last week, but we are back with our weekly Monday show. So, guys, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, because there's lots to talk about tonight. It was our first big weekend of UK boxing with Liam Smith and Chris Eubank Jr. Now, Ray, I've got to give it to you. You got the main event, mate. You predicted a Liam Smith win, but I'll come to you for your full breakdown. I do think it's fair to say I honestly didn't see one prediction where people were predicting an early stoppage. For either way, in all fairness, this was one of those fights we were saying in our preview how it's 50-50, no one's 100%. Let's see how it goes. So, what did you think on the fight?
I thought it was, for as long as it lasted, I thought it was excellent. I thought it was fascinating. I really did. I think I know of one person that got the prediction near enough bang on, and that was Davey Fulton, boxing historian who usually jumps on for us. I thought Liam Smith started really well the first two rounds, and I think he just took advantage of some of the flaws that Chris Eubank Jr. is famed for. That lazy jab, that slow footwork, that leaving that left hand like really, really low. I think he capitalized on that, and that's what I thought Liam Smith would do, bring that aggression, time him with those shots. But I was expecting him maybe to back him up to the ropes later on in the fight and let his hands go at Chris Eubank's body. But I wasn't expecting him to get him into the ropes, into the corner in the fourth round. So I gave the first two rounds for Liam Smith. I thought Liam Smith was, like I said, he was taking advantage of that lazy jab by Eubank, catching him over the top of that jab. He was all through the fight for how long it lasted. He was very, very clever in the way he was coming forward. What he was doing is he was waiting until Eubank was throw the jab, counter that jab, and then move forward a couple of inches with his lead foot, drag his back foot behind him. That way he was putting educated pressure on Chris Eubank Jr. And because Chris Eubank Jr. doesn't have the greatest of footwork, he wasn't able to navigate around that and use any angles. I gave Chris Eubank Jr. the third round though. I thought he started that round well and he finished it well. He landed a couple of good combinations on Liam Smith where he used his speed, and that's where the argument that likes yourself, Josh, about Eubank being a sharper, fresher fight that was starting to come to the fore. And I thought, when you have those moments in the fight when you think, I could be wrong here, and then the fourth started and, we all know what happened there. But I don't think Chris Eubank Jr. can have any excuses, really. I think Liam Smith was right all along. If he dropped somebody 4 times, he wasn't going to let them off the hook. Whereas Chris Eubank Jr., as I said in the preview, I think he was trying too hard he's caught between two styles. He's caught between a style that Roy Jones Jr. is trying to teach him. And then he's caught between his old style of just getting on the inside, throwing as many accurate punches as he can, and then going from short range to mid range. And I just think, again, somebody who's really intelligent, got good at ring IQ, such as Liam Smith, you're not going to get away with making those mistakes. And he made mistakes. He got punished for it.
No, 100% Ray. I mean, what do you think, last week we were debating just how big an issue is it for Eubank Jr. being stuck between styles. Obviously, now we've seen, for me personally, it's quite a big issue. If you're Eubank Jr. now, do you stick with Roy Jones and try and see this through? Or at 33, and let's be honest, your next move, career defining, do you just think, right, I stick with what got me to this point?
I think he just sticks with Roy Jones. I think that for me was career defining. That was career defining. I mean, he's not going to get another world title shot. He's not going to get another world title shot. The possible fight that might be there for him is Ben. And we spoke at length about, this was before we knew Eubank was going to be fighting Liam Smith. We spoke at length about how that fight is all of a sudden bigger commercially because of the controversy with Conor Ben. The manner that Liam Smith put that beat down on Chris Eubank Jr., I don't think that is as big as a fight as what it was 4 weeks ago. So that's a problem Chris Eubank Jr.'s got. So his options are limited now. He can't call for the likes of Golovkin, Janibek, even Andre. He can't call for those boys no more. So I think he's better off just sticking with Roy Jones and actually listening to him. I think Eubank's problem is he's not been listening to previous coaches. Anyone who Adam Booth has turned around and said, I can't work with that guy, he wasn't listening to me. I can't see. I mean, he's had Ronnie Davis, who's a very, very experienced trainer, Josh. He's never really listened to him, yet he's just been subservient in the corner. He's not listened to Adam Booth, who's arguably one of Britain's best trainers. And you got to question whether he's listening properly to Roy Jones Jr. because he's still caught within his old style. So I don't think changing coaches is the answer, Josh. I really don't.
So no, I don't disagree with you. I just think he needs to pick and commit now. You know, if he wants to box, as we said, the jab was lazy. He needs to sharpen up. However, if he wants to fight, then fight. Because I thought I still think Saturday is a fight that he could have and should have is harsh, but he should have definitely given a much better account of himself than he did even before the stoppage. So I suppose the logical thing is now, mate, what are you doing? Realistically, I did think he looked gaunt at the weigh-in myself at 160. So does he move up to super middleweight and try and have one last run? But we know the killers that are about at 168, so I don't know how he'd fare. Or does he try and get that Conor Benn fight made and realistically it's a cash out and say I'm done? Just before you answer, Ray, I'll give you a little bit of time to think about it, which you don't normally get. Got a few comments in. Stephen, thanks for joining us again, mate.
Steve, you all right, mate?
Mickey sees in. All right, yes, mate.
Mickey, you okay?
He also dropped a great comment. I think the Conor Benn fight would have been a lot closer than people think after that performance if it wasn't for the scandal. That was literally my thinking, Michael, when I watched this yesterday. I didn't get to watch it, unfortunately, on Saturday night. But when I watched it yesterday, I literally thought, well, that answers a lot of the questions about the Conor Benn fight that we possibly had. So, Ray, what are you doing next if you're Chris Eubank?
Going for the Conor Benn fight. Go for that fight. Play off the controversy of it. Use the Eubank and Benn name and just settle on that and cash out. I can't see him winning the world title. I can't see him being offered one. He steps up to 160. I don't think that does anything for him. It reminds me of a case when a former fighter named Jamie Moore, who's now a trainer, he was excellent. Jamie Moore, one of the best fighters in the last 20 years from Britain, and not win a world title. And he got beat off a Georgian. He was campaigning for too long at 154, and he finally stepped up to middleweight, and he got absolutely battered by some Georgian for a European belt. Everyone was surprised, and they interviewed him afterwards, and he said, I might give it another go at super middleweight, but my main problem was I've been at the weight below for too long. So when I've stepped up a weight, it hasn't worked out for me. You've seen people like Lee Selby do the same thing. Lee Selby, he went from featherweight straight to lightweight. He missed the weight division. Some people have done that because their body's been so depleted and dehydrated. I don't think it's going to make any difference to Chris Eubank Jr. because what I always say is, if you're going to step up and be successful, you need two of the three. So you need power, you need a great skill set, and you need a great defense. Chris Eubank Jr. hasn't really got any of them. He's got a great chin, but that doesn't mean he's got a good defense. So I think he struggles because he stepped up to super middleweight and he's been found wanting before, hasn't he? So for me, I think his best opportunity in terms of risk reward is against Conor Benn because does Conor Benn really hit as hard as Liam Smith does? I'm not seeing Liam Smith's a big puncher, but I'm not convinced that Conor Benn's is bigger puncher as what he's being made out to be. So that would be my option if I was Chris Eubank Jr.
Yeah, well, the question with Conor Benn, other than the obvious around the drugs tests and whatnot, it's the untestedness, isn't it? Because all we can say is, apart from his earlier fights where he was all over the place, but in the last 3 or 4 years, every question that's been asked of him, in fairness to him, he's answered. He's probably just not being as accelerated as quickly as some or most fans would like. However, I've spoke out about it. I don't mind the build. because he had no amateur experience or very limited amateur experience. So I've not got such a problem with it. But the thing is, we just don't know what he'd be like at this level. Last one on Chris Eubank Jr., Ray. Is he world level? Because obviously, and I agreed with it last week. Calla Sauerland was picking him as outside of the heavyweights, the biggest name in British boxing. And I was with it. However, when you actually go down his resume, and I had a look at that this afternoon, James DeGale's biggest win in what really was a James DeGale retirement fight. Other than that, every time he has stepped up, he has been found wanting. And that was the case devastatingly against Liam Smith, who now we're all fans of Beefy. He's a quality operator, former world champion. But let's be honest, again, Liam Williams lost to Munguia, obviously lost to Canelo. So can we call Chris Eubank Jr. world class? Or if we're honest, do we have to just say he's a good fighter? And there's no shame in that, obviously. But I just don't know if we can actually say he's world class because he doesn't have a world-class win on his resume.
No, he's not. What Chris Eubank Jr. is a big name. He's a big name. I don't think he's world-class. I wouldn't have ranked him high enough. For me, he's not won one of the recognised versions of the world title. He's held the world title, but it was in IBO, I believe.
Yeah. And WBA interim.
Yeah, I couldn't really call the WBA a world title. And in terms of wins, James DeGale was washed up at the time. Avni Yildirim, he stopped him. But you saw what Canelo done to Yildirim. And due to fight after that, which is of any note, would have been Nick Blackwell. But aside from that, he's not world class in anything he does in the ring. And the only way I would see him being world class is by the sort of like show, the circus that he brings, the name, the reputation. That's what he brings. That's world class. That's why this fight was pay-per-view. On resume and ability alone, that's why I was arguing this wasn't a pay-per-view fight, because Chris Eubank Jr. just simply doesn't have those skills. I mean, I imagine you would, you would think the same, Josh.
No, I can't disagree with him. I like Eubank. I'll be honest. I preferred his old, more fan-friendly style. I thought,
Yeah. When he threw a million punches, Josh, he was exciting, wasn't he? Because they were landing, they were easy on the eye. But now it's, he's caught between two styles, Josh.
100%. I mean, Mickey C saying he's a hype for me. George Groves outboxed him when he was coming to the end, was outclassed off a man, was KO'd twice. I agree. I was there that night, actually. That was at the Manchester Arena as well. And I'll never forget. And Ben, who used to be on the channel, will also no doubt remember. There was a bloke sat directly behind us who, at the end of the fight, was outraged. He thought Chris Eubank Jr. had won it by at least 4 rounds, which was just baffling. I don't know what he's watching. Yeah, I know. It always sticks in my head. But no, I agree with you. He's not. I don't think we can class him as world class. I'd like to see him back in a ring. I think we'll get the Conor Benn fight. We'll move on to Liam Smith though, Ray, because let's be fair now, the world's at his feet. I know he's 34, so whatever he does do, in fairness, he's got to stay active, which he has done since the middle of the pandemic, in all fairness to him. But what do you want to see next? Obviously, post-fight, they talked about the rematch, obviously potentially being at Anfield, and he said it would be at 158. Now, am I harsh in saying, if I'm Liam Smith, our understanding of it is from the different stories that are about, there's a rematch clause, but the terms aren't necessarily agreed. So if I'm Liam Smith, I'm naming such impossible terms that Eubank Jr. is just going to walk away and move on. Is that harsh, or is it fair enough? Because I'm just coming at it from a fan's point of view. If that's at Anfield, it's on pay-per-view again. I don't want to pay to watch that fight again. I'm sick of seeing... Well, no, it was a good fight, but I'm sick of seeing rematches in boxing. I understand when they're for world titles in a voluntary defence. However, there's no title on the line on Saturday night, so why the hell is there a rematch clause? Because if it's a close fight, the rematch will happen anyway because the fans will demand it. Same, we saw that with Growers and Froch, didn't we? However, when we see a 4th round TKO where I know Eubank tried to say he could have carried on, but no, you couldn't, mate. You were all over the shop. And that's not a knock on you at all. You were caught with a great shot. but I just don't want to see it again. So, am I being harsh, or is Liam Smith going to be right if he says, like, I want to do 154?
Look, I think Liam Smith will take the fight again. Liam Smith will probably look at that, and Liam Smith's not the type of person that would underestimate any fighter. But you think, oh, this is a nice payday. This at the stadium that I've dreamt of playing football at. My football team's ground. The whole city will come out and support him because the Smith family they sell tickets, are massive ticket sellers, the Smiths. So he'll look at it from that point of view. So I'm not too sure he would try and manipulate things in his favour too much. I don't think he's a diva. I think the Smiths are proper fighting people. They're like, do you want to fight or not? Yeah. I can't imagine the Smiths being too difficult in negotiate unless they're fighting somebody like what Paul Smith did against Andre Ward, where he deliberately came in heavy, those kind of things. If he was to get up against Canelo, I can imagine him playing those games, not against Chris Eubank Jr. because he beat him, you know what I mean? But I think for me, I wouldn't want to see the rematch anyway because it was so conclusive. What's that rematch going to bring? You're right, it's not for a title. It wasn't close, it wasn't controversial like Froch Groves. It wasn't even a controversial scoring if had it gone to points like Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall. It was conclusive, so the rematch doesn't need to happen. What I would like to see from Liam Smith is possibly putting him in with somebody who it's going to make sense to fight, because I think for me he could have one last shot in the world title. I would like to probably see him back in at 154, maybe bring in somebody like a Brian Castano. He's coming in off a loss. I think that would be a good fight for him. Something like that. I think that would make sense rather than putting him up with a middleweight, because I really still see him as a super welterweight. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, well, there was lots and lots of talk last week about how he struggles to make the weight. And again, I was surprised by...
Smith, you're on about...
Yeah.
Okay.
Struggling to make 154, I meant, sorry. And there was lots of talk last week about that. And then obviously when we saw him on the scales himself, his own face, he did not look out of place at 160. And also, Liam Smith, he's got a reputation for being a technically sound, brilliant, fundamental boxer. He's not got a reputation for being a puncher. Debut at 160, scores a vicious knockout, or, well, TKO, over a fighter that we all perceive to have a really big, tried and tested chin. And let's not forget, I mean, Mickey C's right in the comments about, Groves was coming towards the end, but he was still recognised as the number one super middleweight. He couldn't stop Eubank. I just think maybe he stays at 160 for me personally. And, I don't see now, Eubank was well ranked with the governing bodies. Not so long back was holding a WBA interim title. There was talk of Golovkin. For me, if you want to do Anfield, you get Golovkin over and make Liam Smith versus Golovkin.
Yeah, I can't. Golovkin for me still got it. He's still very, very dangerous. I can see what you mean. If you're going to have a stadium fight, you might as well bring a big name. But surely you want a big name that you've got a chance of winning.
Has Liam Smith not got a chance of winning?
No, not against Golovkin. No, Golovkin's still quality. I mean, he lost against Canelo, and that was wide the third time. But Golovkin's near enough 40-year-old. There's different levels of class between Canelo and Liam Smith. The last thing that leaves a fight is a punch, and Golovkin, when he hits you clean, Liam Smith won't be there. And I just think that physicality, that difference, it's all well and good stepping in against probably a dehydrated middleweight at 5'11", but against a thick, sturdy, thick-set 5'11" in Golovkin, I think that's where you're going to see the physicality difference. And Kell Brook knows all about that. So I see what you mean in terms of bringing it. That will sell in a heartbeat. But I think anyone, Liam Smith, I think if he brought over Janabek, that would sell. I
do hear you, but for me, if there's a time to fight Golovkin, it's now. He's 41 years of age. He won't have done 160 in over a year by
Mm.
the time. Again, didn't look out of place at all at 168. I just think it's a great fight. If you're Liam Smith, you're riding, the confidence is high. As we said, really, Triple G in with Canelo. And I know Canelo is obviously a level above Liam Smith, but he was very disappointing, if we're being brutally honest. He took far longer to even get Murata out of there than realistically should have, if he's this, what we think. For me, I just think if you're Liam Smith, right, he talks about career paydays and, financial security. And no doubt Liam Smith will have earned a few quid. However, if you're looking to maximise this next 12 months, 2 years of your career, a Castano, say, to come over to the UK, you're going to have to pay Castano handsomely to come. We've seen it before with British fighters. They have to take a lesser purse to get the opponent over. So, I don't know, say for round number's sake, he'll get £500,000 for fighting Castano. You're into 7-figure paydays for fighting Golovkin. I just think it's a fight that would make, for me, it would make sense. And there's no shame if he was to lose, because, this is Gennady Golovkin, one of the, best fighters of a generation.
And I think you run the risk of being stopped badly by Golovkin. That's the other thing. It's probably a high reward, but it's high risk as well. And I think probably Liam, to fight at Anfield, he wants to be in with a chance of winning. I mean, Liam's a warrior. He would be going with anybody. But I mean, there's other names in the middleweight division. There's Jamal Charlo. Whether or not you can work with PBC and entice them to get Charlo over, probably not. Charlo will probably want to stay in the States. I know Golovkin has been over to fight Brook. So you probably got more success there, but I still think Golovkin's more dangerous than what people think now. I think he's still got a little bit left. He's still he's still not the Golovkin of old, but I still think Golovkin at 60%, 70% still enough to beat Liam Smith, because Golovkin was that good when he was 100%.
Yeah. On Kell Brook there, obviously he's a name that's also been touted about. We know he retired, but then he's publicly said himself that, it's hard to adjust to retirement. And then last week he was about and had made no secret via Ben Shalom that this is actually, he'd be up for fighting the winner. So, Kell Brook, Liam Smith, do you fancy it or not really? For me, Liam Smith would just win it quite comfortably.
Yeah, and I don't. It's not as if Kell Brook prematurely retired. Some fighters are prematurely retiring. For example, like Marvin Hagler. He retired after that controversial. Well, he felt it was controversial against Leonard. We never saw him again, and I thought, well, he still had plenty in the tank. There's been other Carl Froch I still thought could have given us at least a couple of more fights. So there is those fighters that you think actually, there was still more in the tank. Kell Brook had in that fight against Amir Khan, and in the fights against Crawford, there was nothing in the tank. He looked shot to me. He beat Amir Khan because Amir Khan was more shot than him. Against somebody.
Sorry to just interrupt you there, Ray. I think he looked good against Amir Khan, but that's the thing. He was just less. He's just got more left than Amir Khan had. So I'm never going to knock that loss because it was that win, because it was dominant. But it says more about Amir Khan than it does Kell Brook for me.
Yeah, I think because Amir Khan. I remember chatting to yourself and chatting to friends of the show like Imran, Davey Fulton, Greg, and all the boys. Mickey C. And I remember saying that we've got two shot fighters here. It's just a case of which one's the more shot on the night. And I thought it would be Kell Brook because of the eyes and the damage, and it just happened to be Khan, which is no surprise really. But in the sense of Liam Smith, Liam's still got another couple of years left. He's still, he's still quite strong. He's still accurate. He's still got all his timing intact. And I just think Kell Brook's walking into a whole lot of trouble if he takes a fight so competitive like that. So I think for me, Kell Brook should stay away from competing inside the ring and stay on the other side of the ropes. That's my opinion on Kell.
No, fair play. Well, guys, good to let you know. We'd love to know what you would like to see for Liam Smith next, I should say. We'll move down the card, Ray. Richard Riakporhe. Now,
Mm.
we were bigging up Glavaki last week.
Mhm.
Both of us were both guilty of it. So we both got this prediction right. But Riakporhe, wow, for me anyway, I thought he was incredible. And when Glavaki got hit the first time in the second round, he got hit, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He stayed hit, and that tells you the power of Riakporhe. But what I liked in I said it in our group chat was I saw that plan B from him. I saw how patient he could be. I was always concerned that if he tried to get Glavaki out of there and Glavaki didn't budge, what would he then do? Would he panic? Would he would he get a bit jittery? But no, he was patient. He stayed behind his jab. He looked for openings, and then the power comes. The power came naturally. It flowed. It's nice and relaxed in there. Great performance, and it shows that he can carry his power to the next level. Really impressed with that.
No, 100%. I mean, they spoke obviously with Bill and Smith afterwards. That's a fight I'd really want to see again. However, I do agree with what they both sort of said. They need to go off and get world titles and then come together to unify. So, I mean, who do you think is the most realistic and viable option for Richard Riakporhe, presuming it's a world title next?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've got the lad from New Zealand. Maybe they can, yeah. Maybe you can make a fight with him. Obviously, see what the situation lies with. Excuse me, Lawrence Okoli. But they're the two ones for me that I would say stand out in terms of I'm not too sure what's going on with McCarbo at the minute because he got injured when they were way back when they're talking about him maybe fighting Canelo. How ridiculous that sounds now. But yeah, those put him in there. I mean, he's just taken out somebody that we had. Not necessarily we didn't think he could do, but we had reservations, Josh, didn't we? Let's be straight about it. Because Glavaki is only been beaten by Usyk, Okoli, and Bradis. So he had only been beaten by the very best. So why not put him in the back of that top title mix?
No, 100%. I mean, quick couple of comments. Stephen's back. The bump on Eubank's eye was an elbow from Smith. I've got to be honest, I've seen some tweets about this, but I haven't actually seen the footage to look at it. I just saw the fight, but I've not looked at it in that sort of detail. So, Ray, just quickly, have you seen that? Or
I saw it, but I can't conclusively say it was an elbow.
Yeah. No, I'm the same. So I will have a look at once we finish it. I will have a look. And they said Roy Jones Jr. is not a trainer. Now, controversially, I agree. It may not be controversial. You're nodding there, Ray. I agree with Stephen. Even on the shouldering content that they make behind the ropes or whatever they call it, I actually think Roy Jones Jr. is obviously a legend of the game, one of the best to ever do it. But for me personally, he'd be great to have in your camp as an advisor, not as a head coach. I don't know what your thoughts are, Ray.
Exactly. I hate bringing other sports into it, but it's a bit like the situation that Everton had just found himself. Just because somebody was a great player doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a great manager or a great coach. That's a problem. That's a problem with Roy Jones. Fantastic boxer, but that doesn't necessarily mean you've got the ability to teach what you know to somebody else who doesn't know. And if you look at Roy Jones, he's almost trying to teach Chris Eubank Jr. to box the way Roy Jones boxed. Roy Jones was an athlete alone. Chris Eubank Jr. is a fit lad, an athlete, but he doesn't have the reflexes, the power to do what Roy Jones did. And the reason why I want to second this is there's a young lad from the UK, very, very young, who Roy Jones was coaching, took him out to Mexico and the kid got beat. 16-year-old, light flyweight, Tony Curtis. And he got battered out in Mexico, let's be straight. And he just goes to show Roy Jones he's struggling to translate what he himself knows to his fighters. So I definitely agree with that point, Stephen.
No, fair play. I mean, I'm not happy about that Everton analogy, Ray, but I suppose...
Well, you're not an Everton fan, so it shouldn't concern you too much.
Oh, but Frank Lampard's a legend of the game, and at Everton, he couldn't have done much more.
I thought you were a Man United fan.
No, I am, but he couldn't have done... I was just like Frank Lampard, mate.
Maybe I should have said Steven Gerrard, because obviously Man United, Liverpool.
No, you're right. Gerrard's a prick. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Chris is back. Chris, pleasure to have you
Evening,
on, mate.
Chris. You all right?
I have commented on there, but on one of our other videos, one of Chris's subscribers who subscribes to both channels has been telling us about DMs that Chris has been exchanging with Kid Galahad, Chris's best mate. So, Chris, be great to hear more on that, mate. Oh, that's upsetting. It's a coincidence his name is Kid. Andre's let me down there, Chris. All day I've been thinking, I'm looking forward to hearing about what Chris has been saying. Shocking. Shocking. I didn't even tell Ray because I thought Ray would be excited, but there we go. We'll carry on down the card now because this is where I got a little bit of bragging rights back, Ray, wasn't it?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, Esserman in Congo.
Yeah, I did predict this one correctly. So we are 3-3 this year because we also both obviously predicted Parker to beat Jack Massey. So we are 3-3. There is a league table forming. Obviously, I'm defending the crown of 2022.
Which will soon be in my hands, but we'll see.
Not that soon, mate. You know, we've
still got 11 months left.
I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Let's be honest. I mean, last year was so convincing. Only let down by the fact that come September, boxing kind of gave up and we didn't get fights that were 50-50.
Yeah.
But I should say we have agreed that this year, where it's relevant, we are going to be allocating fights to the league table for the undercard as well.
Yeah.
We just did main events last year, to be fair. So it's all tied up after effectively week one, but we'll get there. Essuman and Congo, though, Ray, it was a good fight, wasn't it? And, you know,
it was Josh. It was Josh, and it had. It was more of a chess match. It got a little bit scrappy at times. It perhaps didn't live up to the expectation that we all anticipated, but it was still a good fight. It was a fan fight rather than for the casual fan, if you know what I mean. It was more of a boxing fan fight. But for me, I've got to question the scoring. I still had Congo winning that fight. It was almost like a fight at two halves. So Congo, I believe, had the better of the early rounds. But boy, did Esserman get into that fight and finish that fight strong. Esserman's a really, really strong kid, and he surprised me in there. I know you were saying all this in the preview, but I was talking about Congo's skill. I think what let Congo down is he started to tire in the second half of the fight. He started to hit and hold, and a lot of judges just don't like that style unless the little punches that you're throwing are sharp and having an effect and pushing Esserman back, which has started to do less and less towards the end of the fight. You know, you're not looking as being the effective aggressor or the ring general, and that started to look like Esserman. So that's why the judges are probably giving Esserman, those other rounds that I didn't give him. I had it 8-4, 116, 112 to Congo, but yeah.
See, this is why I love it. I actually had it 7-5 to Esserman. I literally, I agree. As I said, I watched it back yesterday morning, and on Saturday I was out. And when I was reading the Sky commentary on the app, and literally the next morning I found myself agreeing it was all down on the last round for me, which I gave to Esserman. So I thought it was close. And I'll be honest, actually, it's one of those. I mean, I know there's the IBF European, but it's one of those British title fights that I actually wouldn't mind seeing ran back. I thought it was a really entertaining fight, and it lived up to the billing. We said it could be a fight of the night, and for me, it was. I mean, the main event has to take it because of how impressive the main event was. However, it was definitely a highlight and a great start. And also a quick shout out. We've been calling for promoters to work together. Fair play, because Frank Warren obviously letting Esserman go over, and obviously it's great for him now. He's got a fight with a stock at an all-time high after some good exposure. But fair play to Frank and Ben Shalom. And it's not often I'll say well done to Frank Warren. So there's another first. But there we go. Chris is back in the comments. So privileged to witness that stoppage from Liam Smith. Absolute goosebumps moment, which sums up the whole card. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Respect to Eubank Jr. For going straight to Liam Smith and congratulating him. He's also said, I told everyone Smith was a better boxing ability, and that showed. What the fuck was the game plan from Eubank Jr.? See, as much as I love Eubank Jr.'s humour and mind games. He shows he's a good talker but a bad boxer. We have actually spoke about this earlier on, Chris, and we agree. You can't really call him world class without that world class win. Last one. Eubank needs a tuna sandwich fight to get back on the winning trail, but I can only see Ben next. I think that's where we're at as well, isn't it, Ray? We think he'll end up on Ben next. Get that cash out fight. Next down the card, again, both predicted it, but Joseph Parker beat a very tough, endurable game. I don't know, Jack Massey. He put on a performance. However, he was a bit negative in his tactics, I found at times. But as the lighter man, there was like a £30 difference. I'm not going to knock him for that. I think it's probably the right tactics for that fight. Ray, how did you see this one? I mean, for me personally, I was a bit disappointed in Joseph Parker. I've got to be honest.
Yeah. I was also a little bit disappointed in Jack, if I'm going to be honest. I know Jack's a friend of the show, but I wanted to see a little bit more ambition. I know you're saying it was a £30 difference, and you're going to feel that, of course. But I thought Joe Parker looked so lethargic, slow, so lazy in there. I thought if Jack really steps up on this, his jab looked all right, but he just seemed to sit and he just seemed to be on the outside a little bit more. And then when he got on the inside, he would hold, and he just looked as though he was lacking a little bit of belief in there. Don't get me wrong. It's easy for us to sit here as fans and say that, but from watching it, I just felt as though Jack could have gone for that. And in years to come, he might be kicking himself saying, what would that do for my career in my future paydays had I beaten Joe Parker there? Because it wasn't beyond the realms of possibility. He could have done that because Joe was poor. Joe for me has gone backwards, which I think is really strange because he's got a class trainer there in Andy Lee, somebody from the Emmanuel Stewart side of School of Boxing, and he seems to have gone backwards. I don't know what's gone on. I mean, he's only 31, I believe, and he looks as though he's just shot, basically. So yeah, I was quite surprised. I was expecting a more of a dominant performance, classy performance, going back to. He's quite similar to AJ. Like years back, Joe Parker was exciting, fast hands, put together some great combinations. We're not seeing any of that. And yeah, he doesn't look good at all. He doesn't look good at all.
No, 100%. I thought Andy Lee had made some positive improvements to Parker going into the Chisora 2 fight. And ever since then, I think we've just seen backward step. And, fair play to Jack Massey. And I know we always get accused of being a bit biased because we've had him on and whatnot. However, if Joseph Parker is next world champion with ambitions to get back to that level, he's getting in there with a cruiserweight who's stepping up for that fight. Let's be honest, that fight was made for Joseph Parker to try and get, and probably should get, a highlight reel knockout. Instead, for me personally, Jack Massey's stock's increased because he's done 10 rounds with an ex-world champion. And, we saw his face post-fight. He's a tough lad. He's took a bit of a beating there at times. Joseph Parker, for me, stopped through the floor. I mean, I know Eddie Hearn sort of said when he signed for Boxer that the money they'd offered Parker was just bizarre and couldn't compete, didn't even want to try and compete with it. If you're Ben Shalom now, I think, well done, Ben. That's your first bad signing, shall we say. And I think it is. If Eddie made a lot of it over the last few years, hasn't he? That if you commit you get a budget, you've committed so much to it. You committed so much to Joseph Parker, who's just laboured to a win over a cruiserweight. So, not great.
No, I think you bang on the money there, to be honest with you. So I'm nodding in, I can't agree any more with what you just said there. And Ben Shalom's probably looking at this and thinking, oh dear, what have I done?
No, exactly. I mean, Chris is back. The Congo fight was of two halves. Congo first, Esserman second. I agree. At the halfway point, I was worried I was going to have to bow down to Ray on that one. But yeah, Esserman's edged it. Underwhelming Park performance for me. Massey should be proud of his effort, but I agree. Only negative could have gone for it more. Yeah, bang on the money, Chris. If I'm Fraser Clark, I'm calling Parker out. Well, he did, didn't he? To be fair to him, said about I'll give him credit, but now I'm giving myself credit. And then Johnny Nelson sort of said, well, hang on a minute. in 12 to 18 months. But for me, personally, that's a fight that, it's a big gamble, don't get me wrong. But Fraser Clark's 31 himself. You've got to take that gamble with him. Now's a great time to fight Parker because he cannot be feeling confident. At the minute in the UK, he's making a career out of being Tyson Fury's sparring partner, if we're honest. No, I know I'm not saying that for the laugh either, but at the minute that is in danger of what he's becoming most known for. And I'm a fan of Parker's, I really am. But I agree with Stephen. Fraser Clark would destroy Parker. I like Fraser. That's the first time I've seen him.
You know what it is? I think he would be Parker now. Parker for me probably wouldn't take that fight, but I agree with you. I think this is the best time to take Parker, if any. And that fight would bring him on. I think that fight would bring him on. And it's probably a fight that actually, if Parker was to, maybe not the next fight, no, but if Parker was to churn out another performance like that, Ben Shalom would probably think, well, I may as well cut my losses and put him in with Fraser Clark, because then it's win-win for him, because then he just builds him up from there.
But this is the thing now. I suppose it's back on Parker, but we said about this last week that for me the Massey fight was a sort of no win situation. If he gets the highlight reel knockout, he should have. He hasn't got it. Now he stops through the floor. So who does Joseph Parker fight next, Ray? Other than potentially Fraser Clark, who does he go in with?
Good question. Well, if you look at if we look at it like this, Joshua's going to get his next fight announced very, very soon. Tyson Fury's looking at Usyk. Wilder's looking at Andy Ruiz. That's going to be announced pretty much just when the Caleb Plant David Benavidez fight is officially announced. So they're the sort of like top guys tied up. Underneath that, you're looking at people like Jared Anderson, who is going to avoid like the plague. Okhlemedov, the Russian guy, he's gonna kind of avoid. Jalilov, he's going to avoid. And these are like your support prospect guys, who've got a little bit more experience than like Fraser Clark. Does he put him in with somebody like a Martin Bakoli, Tony Yaka, who Martin Bakoli beat, to try and get some sort of confidence in him?
The Yoka fight for me would make a bit of sense. Neither of them stocked particularly high. I just, Sky would have to accept that they're going to potentially take a pill on that fight because both fighters are going to command a bigger purse. And I don't know how well it sells, if we're being brutally honest. And then this was going to be my next point, actually. I saw a lot of tweets with the White Parker rematch. And it's a decent fight, yeah. But White was underwhelming against Franklin. Parker's stock, as we just said, is at an all-time low. That fight would have to go on pay-per-view because of who they both are. Would you be, other than the fact that, we're Sadak's Ray and buy every pay-per-view, are you expecting fans to buy that fight? Because I'm not.
No. And also, the only reason why I never said Dillian White is I can't see him taking a fight like that, knowing that he's potentially got a rematch with Anthony Joshua. And if you ask Dillian White, what would you want more? He would want that rematch with Anthony Joshua all day long. 100%. It's like Gross to Gale, that one. Those two can keep rematching each other. I can't. If it wasn't for AJ, yeah, and that would have been the first name off out my mouth. But because of AJ, I think Dillian White's looking and thinking, if it doesn't go right for me in that fight, I don't get the AJ fight. And the AJ fight is his proper cash out fight.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, it's just I can't see it selling both fights. Before you go into a pay-per-view fight, both fighters need to be looking good, and both. I know White beat Franklin, but it was very close. It's not for me. So I suppose we will talk about Fraser Clark. Obviously, another first-round stoppage win over was a winning record in Kevin Espindola.
Yeah.
He talked about Fabio Wardley as well, didn't he? That in the next couple of fights he wants to fight for that, that British title. And Fabio, who'd you put him in with next? Because for me now, we're done with the one-round knockout wins. We're done with the, he's not going to get. Because in fairness, when you actually look, he's fought some decent journeyman names that other people have struggled with on their rise up, if you like. For me, he's got to fight somebody who's going to at least give him a couple of 3 rounds next. And I know that's hard at heavyweight because there is a bit of a gulf. We've got a lot of these journeyman names of Bracamonte and so on. And then you've got those dangerous prospects, which are probably the future of the division, in fairness. We've talked about Big Baby a lot, Oglamedov, and, there's various from Russia, Uzbekistan guys that are on that sharp ascent. And then obviously you've got the top of the division.
Yeah.
Can you think of a name? I mean, Chris has put here Otto Warling's available at the minute. I think she'd get the match versus White, which White would jump ship away from. No, I mean, to be fair, Chris, obviously we had Dimitri Salita on, and there's been various reports. Franklin's very close to signing his deal with Anthony Joshua, but
very close.
The media have made on it's a bit further along than it possibly is. But the other name is Otto Warling, possibly for Dylan White. So, whether we will actually see that fight, I don't know. But for Fraser Clark, Ray, you just had a little bit of time there to think about it. Is there a name that jumps out of you? Because for me, I wouldn't mind seeing
Nathan Gorman. Nathan Gorman's the only one, because Nathan Gorman's probably going to get another shot at the British. I mean, he's above people like Steve Robinson and those kind of kids. He's above that. It's if you can convince somebody like a Nathan Gorman, who's got a bit of a name. He was good enough to at English title level. Nathan Gorman for me would be ideal. He's the first name that jumps to my head. No,
I'd like that fight. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think I'd back Clark to win it, particularly after the Fabio Wardley Nathan Gorman fight. But I mean, the other option for me, Ray, and I don't know what your thoughts are on it. Chris is there; he's with you, all for Clark Gorman. But the other option for me, I know it's rushed, but for Joe Joyce, it's worked. What are we at 13 pro fights, and he's next in line for a world title. Do you think we could end up seeing something like that with Fraser Clark, or do you think with the money that it was well documented that Sky invested in these Olympians that they're going to have to be a bit more cautious and not take that gamble?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one with heavyweight, isn't it? If it was me, I would be a little bit more cautious. I think he beats Nathan Gorman, so I've got no problem putting there with Nathan Gorman. But I wouldn't want to see. They took risks earlier on with George Joyce, and he's come through them, but not everyone can. And George Joyce very early on, it was evident that he had an above normal chin and above normal stamina condition for a heavyweight. So you could probably afford to take that gamble on him. We haven't seen those from Fraser Clark yet because we haven't had to. But do you risk gambling who's going to be potentially your star in the heavyweight division? Probably not. So, although, we keep saying he's 31, but you can still take your time, because heavyweights, don't forget, can go on until the late 30s. Step him up. I'm not saying don't. I'm not saying put the reins on him like I would do with Adam Azim. He's not an Adam Azim, but I still think you can give him those gradual step ups, because heavyweights, there's still a massive gap between your top echelon of heavyweights and those that are sort of like a kind of contender level, because heavyweights aren't like what they were 20, 25 years ago, where you had a lot of gatekeepers, and that's what the division's lacking, and that's what Fraser Clark needs.
No, 100%. Well, guys, we'll wrap it up there. It's been a pleasure. Hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. Also, just before we went live, I just dropped a video about Floyd Mayweather and his opponent fighting in the UK for the first time. So check that out. And we'll see you on the next one.